All right, we're back with college football coverage, and in this one, I'm going to be covering the week 8 games that I at least watched for any period of time, to be honest. So, to start things out with Washington at Michigan on big noon kickoff at the noon slot, and honestly, I felt like this could have been a really good one. My questions were kind of just centered around how Damon Williams Jr., the sophomore quarterback for the Huskies, would respond after his game last week. Because he ended up, he had a slow start in that one, torched that Rutgers defense by himself. Now, granted, when you're dealing with a Michigan squad in Ann Arbor, that's going to be a different beast, but it felt like he had a really good opportunity to solidify himself into Heisman candidacy if he kept it up there. Also had to account for the running back matchup here. I guess Justice Haynes still ended up being injured for this one, so they relied heavily, the Wolverines, on Jordan Marshall's services. But Jonah Coleman as well is one of the better running backs in the nation, if not the Big Ten himself. So that was going to be interesting to cover and look at as well. And as you would expect, because while we always talk about the Michigan defense, Washington's defense this season has played exceptionally well. Exceptionally well. So this ended up, for at least the portion of the game that I watched, being a complete and total defensive stalemate. Neither team could really do much of anything. Uh, like immediately, Washington came in there with the idea, especially from that linebacking core and one of their guys in Mano. As soon as their tight end on third down got this catch in, the man popped the living hell out of him. This is going to be a game predicated on who could out physical the other team in the front seven and on the front lines. It's as simple as that. Like Washington would follow up that drive with a decent response, but again, nothing sustainable enough to really strike enough fear in the Michigan defense at that point of time. Before you knew it, we got yet another situation where they just ended up turning the ball over on downs, the Wolverines that would be, as they would be stopped just short. And it didn't have to be that way. I mean, they got a good enough gain on 3rd and 16 inside Washington's plus territory. So I'm like, you know what? That does make sense. And the play ended up developing really nicely. They had one of their wide receivers roll out to the flat on like an RPO sort of play. And he was wide open. If he hauls it in, he's probably got himself a first down. And yet this man, Morgan, legitimately dropped the pass. It hit him straight in the hands. And he didn't bring it down. I don't know how to explain that shit. That's just not something that can happen in those moments. And almost instantly, it cost them. Because the very next play would see Damon Williams just send that shit deep and over the top to Roebuck, one of his wide receivers. He ran a really good post route as well and just caught it right in the middle of the field for a fucking 48-yard gain. But once they got in that red zone, yeah, they were just completely stymied. They could not establish the run on 1st and 2nd down, which was probably their game plan. And then, before you knew it, you had Williams Jr. just completely overthrow one of his wide receivers in Von's Bright on 3rd and long. They had no choice but to settle for a field goal, but they still had Grady Gross from last year, who was their kicker. And we know some of the shit that he was pulling last year. Well, I regret to inform you Washington Huskies fans out there, but it's safe to say that this has not changed. This inconsistent quality from him is still very much natural to what he does on the football field. And he missed this 36-yarder. I don't care if it's at an angle. Like, it traveled wide right. And I'm like, how the hell do you do that? That's just not something you can have happen. Like, those points, even if you're settling for field goals, in a game against a team like that, in a setting like that, every single point has value, of course. You got to take them and gain them where you can get them. And you missed such a grand opportunity to take the first strike in this game. It took a little bit of strategy, but the Wolverines were able to just make that defense completely bend to their will in due time, honestly. They just started chipping away at the field, and you had Underwood, who, again, had his own inconsistencies to start out the year, which makes sense. He's a freshman quarterback. He's not going to have it all down at the moment. He made some very solid reads on this drive, and they just got chunk play after chunk play with him carving up the defense. Before you knew it, they had this Andrew Marsh kid on first down near the Washington red zone just break so wide open on a route. He kind of ran a curl, I guess, deep one. Underwood throws it straight to him, and he just turns straight up the field, basically untouched and undeterred from scoring a touchdown on this play. The fact that this man has so much speed and like a fast twitch quality has just got to be a great turn for a for a Michigan team rather, that, McCauley is obviously a physical wide receiver, but he's probably on his way out as a senior. This kid, Marsh, is a freshman. And I'm like, are we quickly starting to learn about who exactly this dude is? Is he going to be a problem in college football in a few years' time? I don't know. But, there are definitely some signs right now that suggest that he's definitely got some very good potential that could be realized by this Michigan team. I'm not even going to lie to you. Now, after they go up 7-0, the Huskies become very desperate to respond, and they try their hardest to. After this third down conversion, in where you had Jonah Coleman run essentially a Texas route that ended up gone for 27 yards, because, again, he's just that fast. He ran it so well, no backer is going to be quick enough to guard him out of the backfield, and Washington, on a third and extremely long, exploited that very well. And after this play, I was not able to watch the rest of this game. They would eventually punt on this drive, and from there, they did end up evening up the game at the end of the first half, essentially. And this was due to a missed kick from Michigan. Again, 48-yarder doesn't really seem the worst when it comes to the NFL. But again, in college, when you account for angles and everything, in some cases you have to put even more of a curve and more power even in the kick. And that can always kind of disrupt a kicker's momentum. I won't sit here and act like it's not difficult to do that. I just couldn't say that at all, because I'm not a kicker, but it's like, damn. Those, again, leaving any kind of points on the table like this just hurts. And then you had the Huskies drive down the field right after that with Jonah Coleman, of course, punching it in for a touchdown. No more. No more for the Huskies. At that point, Michigan decided to say, we're just going to lock your asses down. You're not going to do shit in the second half. And they literally did not. Granted, both defenses were completely locking up the other team. But then Washington and Damon Williams Jr., for as great as he played last week, he made a crucial mistake. Because you know that defense is going to play you tough. And when you give them opportunities to capitalize on turnovers, you decrease your chances of winning the game severely. That is exactly what would happen. Damon Williams Jr. on back-to-back drives threw interceptions. And on back-to-back drives, for example, this first one, literally just saw Jordan Marshall punch it in for a 14-yard touchdown on the very first play. And then on the next one for Michigan, they churned down the clock heading into the fourth quarter. And despite some deterrence from the defense, that still wasn't enough to stop a different Marshall. I would assume this is a wide receiver. He got a 10-yard touchdown catch. Just like that. In a matter of a couple drives. Washington went from strongly contending in this game and having an opportunity to completely take it over to now being down by multiple possessions to Michigan in Ann Arbor. To make matters even worse, the game didn't really end better for them at all. They turned it over on downs and then gave up a Michigan field goal, despite them driving just 9 yards in 4 minutes and 24 seconds. And then Demond Williams Jr. threw another interception. But that was just, again, fitting for how the game ended up going in this stretch of time. So though it was a valiant effort for almost 3 full quarters, again, you're lingering around like that as a unit, and then you make those fatal mistakes to give the Wolverines defense takeaway opportunities. And just like that, Michigan would win 24-7 off of the strength of those plays alone. Bryce Underwood, though, with some of what I watched and I guess some of what I didn't watch, played a hell of a game. One of his finer games this season. 21-27 for 77.8% completion and 230 yards and 2 touchdowns without a pick. He also had 25 rushing yards on the ground. I also said that, hey, Haynes is obviously a great running back, has been a great running back for them this season, but like I reiterated for the time that I watched, they needed Marshall to step up in this game for Haynes. And what did he do? He had 133 yards on the ground on 25 carries and a touchdown run himself. As for the receivers, this other Marshall person had 5 receptions for 72 yards and a touchdown, and Andrew Marsh had 5 receptions for 49 yards and a touchdown. As for Washington, again, definitely a fall from the glory he had last week. But to throw 3 interceptions on 62.5% completion for 209 yards, it just wasn't going to be enough against this Michigan defense. And while he was able to get a few scrambles in, at least in the early portion of the game, you also have to credit that defense for keeping those kinds of breakdowns to an absolute minimum so that Williams Jr. could not reach his full ability by bailing outside of the pocket and making the extra play needed to succeed. Jonah Coleman had 50 rushing yards, but was also limited to just 3.1 yards per carry. So that's always going to get the job done as well. And Boston, for them, had 4 receptions for 71 yards. Coleman also had 41 receiving yards out of the backfield, and Vines Bright had 3 receptions for 35 yards. Tough loss there. Again, they just had to perform much more consistently in this one, and they were just completely limited and zeroed out throughout the flow of the game. There's nothing more to say about that otherwise. Moving on to number 10 LSU and number 17 Vanderbilt. When the fuck did Vandy get this good in college football? No, I'm not a gambling man. But these niggas were favored. They were favored to win this game. And the second that I saw that shit, I fucking knew that LSU would be on some fuck shit entering the game. Now, again, this wasn't a situation where it's like they were playing Vandy in Death Valley, because you could argue that things would have gone a little different per se had LSU had home field advantage. But this took place in Tennessee, and I'm sure that crowd was just filled nearly to the brim. I don't think it was sold out. But man, for probably another time in at least the last couple years with Diego Pavia being in there, but stretch it across decades worth of college football. And man, this is a rarity for the Vanderbilt college football fan base. They haven't seen a team potentially this good in their first 7 games of the season if they were to win this one since 1950. That was what was on the line for them entering this game. Also, there was a different graphic too, just to put this into even more perspective. Okay? They had been ranked for the last 7 weeks, or at least since Pavia's been there, they've been ranked 7 times in 7 weeks. Let's just put it like that. And I think that would relate to this season, if I'm not mistaken. That, entering this game, would match their same amount of ranked appearances in the AP Top 25 poll in the past 65 plus years. This Vanderbilt squad has turned from a laughingstock of college football across the nation to damn near a team of fucking destiny and the underdog team that you would find anybody rooting for, to be honest with you. And hey, they had Alabama in a chokehold last year in Tennessee. They were on pace to do the same thing to LSU on their turf and on their terms. Meanwhile, you have LSU doing as best as they can to pose as championship contenders under Brian Kelly, and they were certainly desperate to win this one. I don't know if losing it would completely hurt their chances, because again, this Vanderbilt team is legitimately not a slouch anymore. Like, they are actually a sneakily good team. So this might not go down as a bad loss for them, but you don't want to get beaten to a bloody pulp either. And Vanderbilt got right after it on their end. Like, one of their backers was just flying into some big tackles all ready to start off the game. But Nussmeier, with him being the quarterback that he supposedly is, he would manage to get a couple conversions in a row. I don't know how Barry and Brown does this shit, though. Like, the man manages to go up for 50-50 catches like it's nothing, and yet I was told that this dude was just a fucking speedster. So how is that even possible? Somebody's lying. Anyways, when it comes down to it, despite them establishing the run a little bit, I don't think they want to have situations where Garrett Nussmeier is stepping up in the pocket with the intent to run, and he was promptly sacked by one of the Vandy D linemen before inevitably stalling on the drive and having Damian Ramos kicking a field goal to give them the lead to start out the game. But Vanderbilt would respond mightily, instantly. They got their tight ends, both of their tight ends involved already. In fact, as one of the metrics would state later on in the part of the game that I watched, this Stowers kid is a good tight end, yet he's listed as the number 1 fullback H-back prospect in the draft for next year. That's just some of the weirdest stuff I've ever seen in my life. I don't really know. I don't know how that's possible, man. But, like, okay, we'll take it. And, I mean, it makes sense because he got another third down conversion here. before you would inevitably have Diego Pavia just barrel down, tuck that ball in, and take advantage of an extremely wide open rushing lane to get near a touchdown before inevitably, via a penalty from LSU, punching in himself on a QB sneak to give Vandy the 7-3 lead. LSU would definitely not go down without a fight, though they would be deterred early with Durham being limited in his rushing yardage here. But Brown, once again, being the speedster that he is, got open in just enough time to get yet another third down conversion here. They started splitting Durham's carries with this Berry kid, and he did manage to put them into scoring position prior to the end of the first quarter. Then, Trey'Dez Green, the large tight end that they have on their team, he struck wide open on a cross, but that heat was coming on first down. And Nussmeier, for one of the few times in the games that I've watched, I looked and I said to myself, hey, that's a throw from an elite quarterback. The heat was all in the vicinity of his boundary. That pocket was crumbling. Had a hand in his face and everything. And he got lit up as soon as he released his pass. But you know what? He didn't get scared off of doing what he needed to do. He stood there, hung in there for enough time, and delivered the perfect pass in stride to Green. And at that point, Vandy defense was far out of position. Green just ran all the way into the end zone for a touchdown on that play. Exceptionally great pass from him. And if that was consistent, well, I could see why Nussmeier would be highly touted as a prospect. But it just seems to be so few and far in between when it comes to plays like that. That's the thing. Man, LSU had struggles with stopping the rushing game. Like, yes, Pavia ended up being a tremendous threat to them, especially in the part of this game that I didn't watch. But, they couldn't get a handle on it. Like, even their guy in Alexander on this damn 12-yard gain, that almost was a touchdown if he didn't get tripped up. And you know what? Again, when you have Pavia being that much of a threat on the ground, you're going to want to do anything you can to get a body on him. But, they, at multiple times fucked up. This shit, this shit was crazy, man. I see this man on multiple times within this sequence of the drive. Pavia, that is. He feels pressure coming from Harold Perkins Jr., definitely their best linebacker on the team. And on one of these situations, this man is completely not looking because it's on his blind side. He's not seeing Harold Perkins Jr. creep around the corner, but he spins out of a would-be sack, races him all the way over at an angle, and manages to get more than 5 yards out of the fucking play. As impressive as that was, the man does it to him again and then picks up a large gain in terms of passing to get them deep into LSU's red zone. Before you knew it, Diego Pavia got them closer and closer by running. Literally took 3 people to tackle him before Halsey even managed to get in there and kind of stand him up a little bit. But Alexander, their running back, would punch it in for a touchdown to give Vandy the 14-10 lead. And then I missed other action after this. LSU wouldn't help themselves by missing the field goal, but at the very least they were able to keep the damage to a minimum by preventing Vandy from getting a first down and forcing them to turn the ball over on downs. Both teams would respond with field goals, but Vandy still had the 17-13 advantage at halftime. And as I was tracking it, they just kept this shit going. They would not relent. Spence, their tight end, managed to get a touchdown here. And then the Tigers would get a pretty good response. Like, it's not like they didn't keep things competitive in this game. I saw this catch from Thomas and Post for a 62-yard touchdown, and it just looked incredibly bad. Because anytime you have him streaking all the way past the defense, and one of the nearest defenders to him is a defensive lineman doing as best as they can to haul ass and draining all of their oxygen while doing so, you had to figure that was a really good play call from LSU. Yet their defense, when it mattered the most, it would have been crucial for them to get a stop on this drive right here. And instead, they allow Pavia to continue making magic outside of the pocket. And not only that, but when it came to this touchdown run that I also saw in post, there wasn't a single body on him. And I get it, because they had also been leaving tight ends wide open in this game, so you want to cover those guys. Fine. But you're telling me there isn't a single defender in the area accounting for Diego Pavia, and he promptly, again, has another wide open rushing gap to exploit, runs untouched to the end zone, damn near, for 21 yards. And before you knew it, while LSU had a solid chance to respond, a penalty would force them to back up out of a goal-to-go situation, and they had to settle for a field goal. Defense was so damn good in this one that the teams would consistently hold each other to 3 and outs in this fourth quarter before Vanderbilt essentially capped off the game with the longest drive in this stretch. This damn 43-yard run that they had was essentially it when I tracked it. And before you knew it, LSU had to waste all their timeouts. Fittingly, Pavia would also pick up a first down to give them a goal-to-go situation. And I was thinking, hey, Vanderbilt might have been feeling themselves to where they would have wanted to score. But they just decided to take their knee and end off the game, giving them the 31-24 win and setting just a lot of historic precedents for a school in college football terms that, again, has not been relevant for such a long time. But they are back in the national spotlight now, and deservedly so. In this game, Pavia had a combined 246 yards and 63.6% completion percentage with 3 total touchdowns, 2 rushing. Just a fucking dominant game from him. And that was the X factor here. Like, that added ability that Pavia has as a scrambler, as a runner of the football, just completely offset the game plan that LSU had implemented. And they knew that they had to stop Pavia to have a chance in this game. They couldn't make it happen. And thus, the result was exactly what it was. Young had 82 rushing yards on 5 carries, and Alexander had 14 rushes for 45 yards and a touchdown. As for their receivers, Spence, the tight end, had 56 receiving yards on 5 catches and a touchdown, and Stowers had 3 receptions for 32 yards. As for LSU, Nussmeier, again, from at least what I watched, didn't play the worst, but you probably would have needed a little more to take you over the top in this one. 67.9% completion and 225 yards and 2 touchdowns is not the worst in the world, though. Durham had 7 rushes for 59 yards, and Barry had 11 rushes for 55 yards. But again, to be outgained on double the rushes by 142 yards, if you're LSU, no matter what you say, that was the fundamental reason you lost this one. You knew Vanderbilt was going to try to lean to their strengths. And again, you did not force them to even think about reconsidering. They completely stuck to their guns. You didn't do enough to push them off of it. Simply put. As for the receivers, Thomas had 4 receptions for 75 yards and a touchdown, and Trez Green had 5 receptions for 74 yards and a touchdown, while Barry and Brown had 5 receptions for 40 yards. Interestingly enough, the Andersons and Aaron and Nick did not see a whole lot of attention in this game. They both had a single catch, and Anderson didn't even get a single yard in this game. Just very interesting, to say the least. But, again, any given day in the SEC, wild shit can happen. And for the second straight year in a row, Vanderbilt can say that they stole a tremendous opportunity from yet another team in the SEC that might be considered to be a championship contender. You know, they started out very highly ranked in the preseason poll. And now, with this win, not to spoil everything, but essentially, Vanderbilt is now a top 10 team in the nation. Who would have thought that? In 2025, I'd be saying that about this fucking program. Very few people could legitimately sit here with a straight face and try to tell people that they saw this shit coming. You'd sound crazy as shit. But it is reality right now. And man, it is just a wild one to confront, to say the least. Moving on to number 5, Ole Miss, at number 9, Georgia. At the end of the day, this ended up being a battle of 2 different coaches under the Nick Saban tree, trying to do whatever it is they could to outcoach the other one. That is exactly what this game came down to. It was close for most of the way through. I didn't end up watching the entirety of the game. I missed some. But before you knew it, Ole Miss, from at least what I watched, they came in with the advantage to open up the second quarter at least. You know, there was a little bit of back and forth, and you would have Gunnar Stockton, while I wasn't watching, get Lawson Lucky, one of the tight ends, his first touchdown of the game. But Ole Miss would fittingly respond with Kawan Lacey getting a rushing touchdown of his own. And he would have multiple as the game waned on, but I will say you can't be fooled by that. And there's a reason for that. Nevertheless, Gunnar Stockton. Man. First of all, I got to say that it pays dividends for him to have some reliable wide receivers. So the improv that he would pull off on this play to get it to London Humphreys, one of their other wide receivers, is not necessarily surprising at all. But it is such a luxury to still have a guy like Dylan Bell on this football team. This man has been here for ages, and he has consistently been a versatile weapon for them at the wide receiver position. If they need him to run the ball, he can do it. If they need him to catch the ball, the man has always got reliable hands. And there have been occasions where he's been asked to throw the football, and they've had success with it. Like, he's just legitimately an all-around player, and he would manage to get a 21-yard gain on essentially an end around on 2nd and long, which shouldn't even be possible. But, of course, he's just too damn good. He's going to find a way regardless. Gunnar Stockton was decent passing in this first half at least, but again, we all know Ole Miss knew what his strength was, and yet they still decided to let that man tote a QB draw up the middle, past every single defender, and they had opportunities to tackle him, but I guess they just didn't want to dive. Maybe they just wanted to make a business decision, sped right past that defense for a fucking 22-yard touchdown run to give Vandy the lead back. But in due time, Ole Miss, led by Chambliss, would respond, especially with the way that he also played in this first half. And again, with how limited Kawan Lacey was in the rushing attack, they certainly needed Chambliss to take over. And he would do that. Stribling ended up being a threat for them. He picked up a different first down for them, and then also drew pass interference. Clear pass interference. Like, the man was grabbing him the whole way through. Things got a little interesting on this third down, though, in UGA's red zone. Because I'm not going to lie, I thought that Stribling had a catch here. I did think so. He nearly brought it down, but, they checked it out, and he didn't end up having full control of the ball. It wouldn't end up mattering anyways because this was another DPI on the very same Georgia defender. And Kawan Lacey would vulture another touchdown run from Trinidad Chambliss to give Ole Miss the lead. Now, in crunch time, while Georgia was on the ropes a little bit, Gunnar Stockton would again, with the help of both Oscar Delp and even Zachariah Branch, again, consistently being underutilized in this one, they would manage to drive down the field. They got near the red zone, but they would be stopped by Ole Miss and have to settle for a 21-20 field goal. Again, in a tough SEC bout like this, there ain't nothing wrong with taking your points where you can get them. For you to have Chambliss, again, going absolutely crazy in the first half and be down by just a single point, like, that's something that you'd live with. Things would change instantly for them in this one. Yes, on the second play from the scrimmage in the second half, Stribling just got wide open on the sideline and just took it all the way to the house. Literally going off to the races. Nobody could catch him from 75 yards out. And they extended their lead to 8 points. Meanwhile, for Georgia, man, to follow that up, to have that happen in your own home field, you definitely needed to respond quickly. And they would do that. This man, Stockton, just started to completely zen out. Like, it helps that he was able to lean on his rushing attack. But, bro, when you look at this, he was just making some sound decisions. Now, again, there were situations where, for example, like, I guess earlier in the first half, he did end up missing Lucky on a different touchdown route. Because the man was wide open on a cross, and he just decides to go in a completely different direction, which didn't make sense to me. But I guess to redeem himself, he did manage to get Lawson Lucky yet another touchdown catch to shorten the lead to 2. They wouldn't get the 2-point conversion. And again, similar case, right? Like, that's the thing that he's going to have to get a hold of. Even if he did do all right in this second half especially. Because, like, when you hold on to the ball for that long, you're missing some open reads here, and they just close up quickly because now they're accounting for you as a runner. So that's something he's definitely going to have to get down as the action goes along. Chambliss, man, like, he had a few solid plays passing, but largely not much. Though you do have to give Alexander II, their wide receiver, is a ton of credit for this damn catch right here. He went up with one hand, mossed the hell out of the Georgia defense. Mossed the hell out of them. And not only that, defender guarding him was also just completely grabbing the hell out of him too. He fended it off, and he mossed the shit out of him. Truly a good play. Chambliss would eventually drive down the field and get a 2-yard touchdown run. But with that being the case, man, again, the second half and largely this fourth quarter were just absolute hell for the man. He could not do anything. And when we get to the final drive, they mention a stat that is just absolutely wild when you look at the splits of the game. Especially when you see how Gunnar Stockton ended up playing in the second half. Like, he was a man possessed, even with a fumble that could have gone wrong here. He stuck with it. They got the fourth down conversion in a couple plays after that. And then he finally hit up Zachariah Branch deep. Finally went up for the 50-50 ball and got it. Look at what can happen when you give him a chance to be more than just an RPO screen type of wide receiver. Yes, you want to get him those passes to get him in the flow of the game, but he can legitimately stretch the fucking field if you allow him to get in that kind of mode. And you rarely have it happen. It is just laughably bad to me that is still something, a quality of his, and is just completely rejected by these teams. And if only you decided to do that a little more, you'd probably get a lot more out of Zachariah Branch. Like, it's just been such an unorthodox season for him with the squad so far, and when he transferred from USC to go there, like, again, it was a pretty good move on paper. But I think this is the game that they might have finally started to figure it out. Stockton would also right a wrong here. Nate Frazier Jr. was open on the swing route in this goal-to-go situation. And it's like he had missed Nate Frazier Jr. in a different situation on what could have been an easy dump-off. Now, he did hold on to the ball for a little long in this situation. Not going to lie to you. And it's like, okay, he's streaking out to the side, wide open. I know you're trying to go through your progressions as a quarterback, but you have the read right there. Hey, Stockton would make it happen. Nate Frazier would walk right in for the touchdown catch. And to make matters even better for the Georgia defense, I mean, they followed that up by forcing a 3-and-out. Georgia marched right back down the field in Sanford Stadium in front of all those fans. And again, yes, started off with Dylan Bell setting the fucking tone so that everyone else could continue to eat afterwards. Zachariah Branch came in play yet again with another crucial second down conversion before Frazier Jr. and then Lawson Lucky, for the third time in this game, again, got a curl route, boxed out the defender. No one was truly accounting for him, though, in terms of like actually trying to stick defense. And he got his third touchdown catch of the day to give Georgia the 5-point lead. Another 3-and-out with just untimely Chambliss passes and just laser tight, coverage on Lacey in the run and out of the backfield forced Ole Miss to punt yet again. And strategically, Georgia would chew clock. They would get Dylan Bell, hit him up for a 36-yard gain down the field because of fucking course. But before you knew it, it would just be the Nate Frazier show. They forced, eventually, Ole Miss to run out of all their timeouts and kick a field goal with Woodring to go up 8. Things would just hit an absolute low point on this last drive. Like, yeah, they set the tone with a 12-yard Kawan Lacey carry, but again, by that point, it was too late. Like, outside of the 2 touchdowns, when it comes to an efficiency standpoint, they made Lacey look incredibly weak in that sense. Incredibly weak. He couldn't do anything. He had very little rushing room to work with. And again, that is a testament to that front 7. Front 7, by the end of this, with a back down from one of their linemen, would also play a heavy factor in limiting Chambliss as well. They got after him. It wasn't all pressure, of course, but he was unsettled throughout that entire second half. And for the life of him, he could not make the simple read. He couldn't make the simple read. Like, you take that deep dribbling touchdown for 75 yards, and then you have that Alexander catch for 32 yards. Outside of those chunk plays, it just paints a completely different picture. And before you knew it, the man finished the game in the second half going 5 of 16 passing for 126 yards and a touchdown. 5 of 16 passing. Finished with just 52.8% completion in this game. And maybe he didn't turn the ball over. He did have a fumble, if I'm not mistaken. To be that inconsistent as a passer in a game of this kind did not do Ole Miss any favors, and they would subsequently lose 43-35. But you also have to look at what Gunnar Stockton did in this game, and again, for a person that I've had my questions about, now I'm considering that, hey, for a quarterback that I've criticized, like, yo, he might have legitimately shown a ton of different people on national television why he is actually one of the highly touted quarterback prospects out here. He might have. Went overall in the game 26-31 on 83.9% completion percentage for 289 yards, 4 touchdown passes, and also had a touchdown run on 59 yards, giving him as many touchdowns in the game as incompletions. And his second half was just absolutely something that I did not expect. Like, yes, was he making exceptional reads in this time? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and say that he didn't. But, yo, for him to go 12 of 12 in the second half, passing, was not only something that was unexpected, but also something with historical significance. As this was the first perfect half for any quarterback in terms of passing the football in college football since 2005, when Aaron Rodgers at Cal, at this point to this period of time, last did it in a half of football. And I was thinking, like, I couldn't believe this as I was seeing it. I was like, was it for a Georgia quarterback or was this in general CFB history? And it ended up being in general CFB history. When the hell did I think that Gunnar Stockton was going to reach Aaron Rodgers territory in terms of college football production? I could not have envisioned that happening. And again, we can say that this is an experience thing. Like Chambliss, again, you can say that the, I guess, hostile environment of having to go in Sanford Stadium and play Georgia might have gotten to him a little bit, but still, you know, he's won these other games in these hostile environments over this point of time. And Georgia ended up bringing it by the end of the game. Like, I can't really say that because Gunnar Stockton himself is a redshirt junior, but even he's had his struggles, right? And yet, he managed to overcome all of that in this game. Nate Frazier Jr. had 17 rushes for 72 yards, and Chauncey Ballens had 10 rushes for 61 yards. You get Zachariah Branch getting 8 catches for 71 yards in this game to lead those receivers. And Dylan Bell also had 2 receptions for 57 yards. Lawson Lucky had 5 receptions for 43 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Oscar Delp, you still can't forget about him, as he had 4 receptions for 42 yards. As for other major players on this Ole Miss squad, like I said, man, Kawan Lacey, yes, the 2 touchdown runs help, but when you look at his overall contributions, 15 total touches, 41 total yards, and 2.6 yards on the ground. That ended up being a key here. Like, yeah, you can look at this and say that, hey, Ole Miss had 4 rushing touchdowns on the ground. Yet, on the ground, they couldn't stop Georgia at all. Georgia damn near doubled their carries on the ground, averaged 4.9 yards as a team, and had 224 yards compared to Ole Miss's 88. Dominated them in that front. And when you look at that 8-point margin of victory, man, could have definitely been shortened if that defense wasn't completely worn down. That is always a strategy when you look at something like this. Stribling had 3 receptions for 96 yards in the touchdown. Wallace III had 4 receptions for 39 yards, and Wright had 3 receptions for 34 yards. Georgia, with as crazy as the AP poll apparently got, they rise back up a little bit, which makes sense, and Ole Miss would definitely take a slide. That's just how it's got to be. But again, it all goes back to how chaotic shit can get in the SEC. Like, you can't blame people when they go out and say that in terms of, like, strength of competition, that SEC's got it. Because I shit you not. Every time you look at it, man, you have one team beating up on another team. And it is just a constant recurring cycle. It never ends on that front. It is wild. Like, my goodness. Moving on to number 20, USC at number 13, Notre Dame. Prior to the game, there have been all these reports talking about the fact that the game, in at least like a few years' time, is set to be over, at least the rivalry itself. And it's like, that in and of itself is a major fucking crime to the college football masses. Like, there's just, I don't know the reasoning particularly. It is just absolutely wild to think that this is on the verge of being over. Like, one of the most competitive rivalries you'll ever see against two teams. And I just, man, like, that is just so tough. I would hope it doesn't have anything to do with conference-related stuff, but it might. Either way, they're still going to put it all out there on the line for both of their respective fan bases. Coming into this game, obviously USC was fresh off just beating the brakes off the Michigan defense by grounding and pounding them into submission, quite literally, between the true freshman in Miller and also Jackson, taking the burden off of the still injured, entering this game, Waymon Jordan, against a very great Michigan defense. And again, you saw them earlier in the day completely limit Jonah Coleman. So maybe that could have ended up being a fluke, right? On their end. In the same way, USC might have been looking to replicate that same magic with those two in this game. But Notre Dame made it a point, even though they got some decent gains later on in the drive, they made it a point on the first one to hit both of them absolutely hard, gang up on them, do whatever they could to ensure that those guys would not have the same impact on the game as they did last week on the ground. Make Maiyava consistently throw the football. And if you do want to play Maiyava like that, well, he can throw the football. He can do it. I mean, not only did you have Jacoby Lane get a pretty good haul from him for a massive first down gain as they continue to drive forth, but you also had him hit up, I guess, number 16 was Hines. It was just hard to tell because, well, they don't have names on the back of their jerseys. And honestly, again, Notre Dame doesn't either. But I understand it. I don't know if they're the same way. Just weird tangent. When it comes to them putting names on the back of their jerseys if they make the playoffs. They probably aren't. But, nevertheless, they would continue driving. And then you have one of their tight ends in McCree go up for an exceptional hot point. Like the man legitimately dove up like a superhero, got very out in front of the pass from Maiyava, and he hauled in a great touchdown catch to give USC first blood in this game. Also, when it came to the rushing component, even if Miller, as a freshman, did all that damage on the ground against USC, against Notre Dame last week. The only problem that USC had to deal with was that when it comes to Notre Dame, they have a great running back core themselves. And they have a little-known guy. Y'all may not know his name, Jeremiyah Love. And, if you didn't know him for some reason at this point, he made his presence felt immediately. The man ripped off a fucking 63-yard run on his very first touch. And, oh, man, when you look at the way that this game progressed, at that point, that was the moment right there where the USC defense might have thought for even a split second that they were fucked. He would then subsequently get a 12-yard touchdown run. And between the combination of his strengths as a runner of the football, along with how exceptionally well that Notre Dame offensive line opened up gaps in rushing lanes by just completely moving other USC defenders and making them go wherever the hell they wanted to take them. Again, overall, when you look at the game, that's what it ended up coming down to. If you don't win it on the front lines, you're not going to win this game. And Notre Dame dominated the front lines and ran laps around them while doing so. It was crazy, too. Like, even the dude that USC has with the long fucking wingspan barely had any sort of impact on this game. That's how good they were up front. But at the very least, this still didn't seem to hurt USC all that badly, because with their West Coast style offense, they managed to make something out of it regardless. Like, yeah, they settled for a field goal eventually, but you still had a couple chunk passes in here. And they still would cap off the first quarter with a lead, 10-7, as both teams would kind of hunker down on defense a little bit, stopping each other and holding each other to 3 and outs, before Notre Dame would open up the second quarter, just keeping it going. Because if it wasn't bad enough that Jeremiyah Love did that shit on his first touch, if that wasn't bad enough, you had Jadarian Price get a damn 32-yard run to open up his night on the ground. And he would then finish that drive with a 16-yard rushing touchdown of his own to give Notre Dame the 14-10 lead. Now, it was a bit of a struggle for Notre Dame outside of that between, again, those 3 drives that ended in 3 and outs. And while they would manage to get a stop on Miami here in their red zone, it would hurt horrifically that CJ Carr, in a game like this, you drive down the field, you make good progress, and you burn a lot of clock off just to get intercepted in the red zone. And then USC promptly managed to get a field goal out of this, with Maiava dumping it off to Brian Jackson to get a big gain. Jacoby Lane also just continuing to be a dominant force at wide receiver alongside McConnell Lemon on the outside. And while it almost got crazy for Maiava as well, with him responding and returning the favor with a pick of his own, they would overturn that, and USC would have a 1-point deficit. That would essentially end the half for them, or take them into the half. Jeremiyah Love was so damn good to the point where, despite him being highly touted as a great running back prospect, he had yet to have a 100-yard rushing first half, I believe. Or maybe general half. Either way, for that to be happening now against this USC defense, when you held, again, the combo of Haynes and Marshall in check for majority of the game last week, that's just got to be so tough. And then again, you allow Price to break through for a few good runs and gash you that way as well. Real two-headed monster. Completely one-upped whatever it was that USC was trying to do in this game. And I didn't watch everything that went down, but man, it was chaos. I had initially thought, for some reason, that, boy. I initially thought that Jaden Maava threw a pick six. In reality, Will Pauling, shout out to Will Pauling, getting himself a touchdown to extend Notre Dame's lead to 8 to open up the second half. So that was a crazy misconception. Stuff that you miss when you don't watch live. That's definitely tough. But at the very least, Maava was holding strong. He would respond with a field goal drive. And then Notre Dame definitely had to get on the defensive because USC had a chance to take the lead after they forced the 3-and-out here. And they would do just that. Because what I did come back in to see after Mekhi Lemon got a short yard catch here, they had safety help, but the man was kind of stuck in mud playing the middle of the field. And they had Jacoby Lane against single coverage run a deep corner route, and the corner guarding him definitely did not have a great enough amount of coverage. He didn't get as physical with Lane as he needed to, and man, Maava put that ball on a string. Lane completely burned him, and he just ran all the way down the sideline into the end zone for a 59-yard touchdown catch to give them the lead. Huge momentum play. Huge momentum play that USC had here. And you're doing this in South Bend, I'm sure that a play that could hurt you from that deep would ensure that Notre Dame fans would shut the fuck up. Yet again, in the same way that Jacoby Lane got a one-play touchdown from deep just like that, well, allow Jadarian Price on the kickoff return to return the favor with essentially a 100-yard kickoff return for touchdown of his own. Yeah. Just taking the perfect angles, cutting through the right blocks, and all the gunners on the USC defense, they couldn't match those kinds of angles of pursuit. It was eventually a foot race between him and Sayeri, and we know who was going to win that foot race. Promptly, he did. I guess this isn't Mitch Jeter. I thought that Mitch Jeter was still with the team. That is my bad. But nevertheless, Notre Dame... they got to get this shit checked out. Because the fact that you are consistently missing PATs like this is a tremendous problem. Was one of the reasons, in fact, the major reason that led to you losing the Texas A&M game. You'd think that get a little better after time. And yet, we're dealing with the same shit here in week 8. Come on, bro. Hold on. You can't do that. Maava would throw an interception, though. Christian Gray, at least in this second half, just proved to be a man possessed. He got this pick and worked the hell out of Maava. A good play from him. You just saw this man stare into the fucking camera the whole time. I don't know what the hell he was looking at. He's just laser focused and locked in on that the whole damn time. I'm like, legitimately, what the hell is going on? Is he good? Like, this is happening right now. But I mean, honestly, again, a heated rivalry like this, you gotta have that mentality as a player. So I can't blame you there. With that interception, Notre Dame had a massive chance to take it all the way back. They already had it. And getting a touchdown here could potentially put the game on ice, even though this is still early in the fourth quarter. Yet, Burnett, yet again, miss a field goal. USC was looking like they were smooth sailing for a second, especially when Makai Lemon got this damn third down conversion from Jeremiyah. Like, he hung on to it for a while because the route had to take a long time to develop, but man, it paid off. Before you knew it, Makai Lemon, without a man truly on him, they were in zone. He got it right over to where Lemon needed to be. And could he have thrown it in stride? Well, sure, because Lemon had to adjust back to the ball a little bit. But he had enough of a window to where you could get away with being a little late on it. And it ended up being a deep 42-yard gain. They wanted to keep it going, so they gave Lemon an end around on the very next play, which makes sense. You want to get the ball in the hands of your best players consistently. But what he would do with it was absolutely stupid. It was definitely stuffed. The line was all over it. And before you knew it, he was being tackled. But for whatever reason, rather than just go down on the ground and take the loss, yeah, it was a 13-yard loss. That's bad in and of itself. But at the very least, you protect the football. And instead, the man tries to throw out of complete and total contention. And it cost him. Christian Gray would be responsible for the fumble here, and one of their guys would recover it, the Notre Dame squad. Huge, yet again, big mistake in a pivotal moment of the game. And what did Notre Dame go on to do? It was the Jeremiyah Love show. Man got a few more gaping holes to run through in this one. And before you knew it, C.J. Carr ended up rushing in for a touchdown. Both teams would turn the ball over on downs, but with Maava getting intercepted yet again at the end of the game, essentially, tried to throw it across his body down to the end zone, and it just wasn't accurate at all. The quintessential desperation pass. And that was kind of karma for him throwing a near interception to Christian Gray earlier on the same drop that ended up just being a standard incompletion. But Notre Dame would essentially end the game with the 34-24 lead. And again, like, USC fought hard, but man, even if they lost by 10 points, we know, again, like I said, we know that the battle was won on the front lines, especially when Jeremiyah Love got that 63-yard run to open his game. Now again, C.J. Carr, 136 passing yards, 61.5% completion, a touchdown, and an interception. Not the best game from him. It was definitely a struggle, but y'all, when you got running backs that you can rely on like this shit doesn't matter. Because you want to know what Jeremiyah Love did? He had 24 rushes for 228 yards and a touchdown by himself. And not only did that end up with one of his final rushes in the game, not only did he have the most rushing yards against USC by a Notre Dame running back since Reggie Brooks in 2006, he also had the 5th most rushing yards in a single game in Notre Dame history for running backs, with him being just a few more solid runs away from breaking the current record held by Julius Jones in a single game in 2003 with 262 rushing yards. It was that kind of night for the man. He was inevitable. There was nothing they could do to stop him in this game. And to make matters even worse, you'd figure that Jeremiyah Love, with him doing what he did, averaging damn near a first down a carry, you definitely give him a higher share of touches in the game. Jeremiah Price himself had 13 rushes for 87 yards. Jadarian Price, rather, and a touchdown. Not to mention the damn kickoff return for a touchdown. Receivers didn't have to do all that damage. They just didn't have to. This was heavily dictated by smash mouth football. You have to love that. You have to. And when it came down to it, again, USC passing offense was okay, but you have Maava completing just 52.4% of his passes and 328 yards for 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Definitely going to be a little harder to keep yourself in the game like that completely when you are turning the ball over and you are losing the turnover battle. But again, the idea was to make Maava pass, and they did that. Because when it came to USC rushing the football, as a team, they had 29 rushes for 68 yards. Miller had just 70 yards on 3.9 yards per carry. Brian Jackson had just 6 rushes for 22 yards. Complete 180 from what happened last week against Michigan. And you could say that Notre Dame's arguably a stronger defense, but man, their front 7 held it down completely. There was nothing that USC could do on that front. Completely X them out. It worked to perfection for them. What can you say? Because they won. They won the game. Jacoby Lane had 6 receptions for under 11 yards and a touchdown catch. McCon Lemon had 4 receptions for 76 yards. Hines had 5 receptions for 67 yards. And McCree had the touchdown catch and 18 yards on 2 catches. Hey, all of a sudden, don't look now, but Notre Dame, they are back in it. They are back in it. Like, yeah, the kind of sentiments that were going around once they lost those first few games was that, in reality, they weren't playing anybody else this season. But in all honesty, they have beaten some pretty solid teams. And this USC win will go down as a pretty strong win, especially when you have the committee, potentially or not, taking into account what Jeremiyah Love did in this game. By himself. A man truly on a mission to showcase to those watching in primetime that he is that caliber of running back. Even if he's had, a few questions surrounding him over the course of time. None of that matters. He is legitimately a major threat and a major player. And you cannot for a second forget that he is on the field because he made USC pay from the onset of the game. They fucked up. They fucked around and they found out. Moving on to number 11, Tennessee at number 6, Alabama. To cap off, by the way, a day in which the SEC tied a record for most ranked matchups in interconference terms in a single day in their history. Which again, when you look at how the AP poll completely shook up yesterday overall, with only Ohio State, not going to talk about that game, by the way. I was thinking about it, but yeah, no, there's just no reason to, right? With what they've still been doing, they are the only team that is still in place from where they previously were the week before. You gotta love the madness of college football, but that is a crazy stat line. Like, wow. Just, oh my goodness. Anyways, coming into this game, yeah, they kept referencing this stat from Joey Aguilar that mentioned that essentially with him getting at least 200 passing yards in 30 straight games, it is the longest active streak right now, and it is the longest active streak for any quarterback in the nation since 2014. Now, I personally think that that's a little bit of a low baseline to, like, choose. Like, you're just going with 200-yard games. That's a little wild, but at the same time, when you see how crazy some of these offenses get, and how they sometimes, even to this day, even with pros moving on to more of a passing league, you'll still have games there in which people fail to get 200 yards. So I guess that's something you have to take into account. And oh yeah, I cannot wait, because again, even with 200 yards being a low benchmark, when you can get that shit efficiently, like Drake May has, I'm gonna save it. But nevertheless, to start off this game, it wasn't looking the hottest. Now, they got some decent things going. They were looking to get Chris Brazzell II going early and often, which makes perfect sense for Tennessee. Alabama was going to have to do everything in their power to stop that man and then some. They could not let him have a masterclass of a game. But they would manage to get a stop and force Tennessee to punt on the first drive. Todd Simpson, man, just got after it, continuing to do what he does best in terms of carving up people over the middle. Cuevas and the Waddle clone got a few catches here before Ryan Williams finally started to have himself a little bit of a game. Like, they got him going immediately, hauled in a beauty of a play down the field, and ended up getting a 31-yard gain out of it. Tried to break a few extra tackles as well, but it didn't happen. He just went straight out of bounds. Then they managed to get him an end-around play on back-to-back occasions. And this came after, again, I found out that Ryan Williams was not injured in the Mizzou game. He was just phased out. And that could have spelled disaster in a multitude of ways. But you know what? He's taking it in stride, clearly, if they're getting him back involved like that, and he's making it pay off instantly. Eventually, Todd Simpson would get it over to Isaiah Horton for a touchdown pass. And then Tennessee would once again just have a weird possession. Like, I just don't get the proportions of some of these drives, because they got some good chunk plays to Brazzell II again, but they stalled out to the point where this man literally got sacked by Pierre, one of their linebackers, and it essentially made it a fucking 10-play, 21-yard drive. Like, how... You can never have a devastating loss of yardage like that, but it just doesn't make any sense how you are going to implement these kinds of game plans just to barely move down the field and waste all that time doing what? Doing what? Like, come on, man. There's just no way that shit can happen. But anyways, they would be forced to punt. Alabama would once more try to get things going. Ryan Williams was still getting after it. This is a tough catch right here. He essentially caught it on like his face mask. They thought that it hit the ground, so they challenged it. Fair enough. That stood. But even after that, you know, with a different conversion and then a penalty backing them up, Alabama would stall out themselves. Then Tennessee would manage to get on the board as Aguilar continued to just carve up defenses. Like, you know, setting that kind of benchmark and passing it consistently is a testament to how smart and efficient of a passer Aguilar seems to have been. And you knew that, again, from the first few games of the season, also combining what he did at Appalachian State in those games, man, you knew you were going to get a sound, productive passer to sustain your offense. And that's really what you needed. he would manage to get a deep third down conversion over to Staley, who, again, for all that we talk about Brazel II, like, he can also be a threat if you don't account for him properly. And, hey, he got so close to scoring because he damn near ran past every single defender. They tripped him up, and while Aguilar would get them closer to scoring, Staley would eventually haul it in from 2 yards out to give them the touchdown, and that was fitting. Now, oh my goodness, like, yo, I'm gonna just put it like this. Now, yes, the Tennessee defense did fine on this drive by forcing Alabama to go 3 and out. They even lost a few yards. But I'm going to tell you this right now. They lost the game right here. When the Volunteers look back on this game, I mean, they're still a decently ranked team, so their CFP chances could be okay. But in the event that they fail to get in and this game is looked at as a reason why, they're going to look specifically at this sequence of possessions from both the Volunteers on offense and what they would do on defense. Because this is just too much stuff started stacking up, and it culminated in an absolutely tragic moment. But to look at it to start out, okay? First of all, on the very second play of this possession from Tennessee, following the 3 and out they forced, get yourself backed up even deeper into Alabama, well, your own territory rather, because of OPI. You just can't have it. As tough as it might have been, you just cannot do it because Brazel II made the play that he needed to make. You go from a third and extremely short to second and extremely long. Then to make matters even worse, the coverage on the back end ends up being so great on this next play for Alabama that they force Aguilar to start getting desperate. And before you know it, any rushing lane for him ends up completely closing. Has nowhere to go, and Pierre, yet again, crashes in from the rafters, says that he's definitely fucking outside, and he gets Aguilar in the backfield for what ends up being a safety to give Alabama a 2-point lead. Then you allow Alabama, if you're the Vols defense, like that just giving up a safety would have been okay if you would have held at least. They come right out and get Jeremy Bernard down the field on an absolute rope for a 28-yard catch. And they just keep it going. They just continue to churn. Brooks, the Waddle clone, literally burns the defense on a crosser for 25 yards as well. Ryan Williams gets in a catch of his own. And then from there, from the 2-yard line, it's Jam Miller Tom getting 2 1-yard rushes to eventually get a touchdown here and give Alabama a 9-point lead in just a span of essentially 4 minutes from this game being tied. And then by the time the full 8 minutes, 8-minute period of the end of this first half was up, man, it was a wrap. Now, my kind of thought going into this drive, I literally have this on my notes. Okay? You had to do everything in your power if you were Tennessee to lean on your rushing attack, lean on short yardage situations to run down the clock as much as possible to ensure that you could shorten this to a 1-possession lead and to ensure that Alabama did not get another chance to score anything in this first half. And the worst part, the worst feeling about this situation is that they did every single thing that they needed to do right leading up to them getting into goal-to-goal territory. They did that. You start out by getting a 19-yard run, and then you get aided with a few penalties. Although you get pushed back, you take advantage of short gains on crucial conversions. Like this pass that Aguilar had to Kitzelman for the first down conversion on fourth down was damn accurate. And it helped them, again, continue to bleed time off the clock. At this point, you'd already passed the 2-minute warning. You extend the drive and get closer into Alabama's red zone. Then, on another 4th and 1 play, as you get further in there, you get a running first down. That forces the action yet again, and you start dipping into your own. But at that point, you're in no rush. You don't want to leave any stone unturned here. You don't want to leave any time on the clock for them. Alabama staved off using their timeouts as much as possible. But before you knew it, once Bishop got a 1-yard gain on what would be 1st and goal from the 2, at that point, they had no other choice. And then Tennessee, I guess, they wanted to think about it. So, you know what? They call a timeout too. They go over the play, go over the game plan, do whatever it is they have to do to get that together. And before you know it, the game flipped completely on its head. Right here. Completely. Because for whatever reason, rather than trusting Bishop, who already got you a yard, to get another one, and I mean, it does kind of make sense as well. You don't have any timeouts. Fine. But dropping back to pass always leaves a scenario for the absolute worst in terms of a takeaway, and a brutal takeaway that leads to a touchdown. And what proceeded to happen next amplified the decibel level amongst the Alabama brass and completely deflated that Tennessee sideline. Because Joey Aguilar dropped back to pass, and one of the Alabama D-backs in Brown completely lurks it and took it to the house for a 99-yard pick six. A legitimate 14-point swing, just like that, to go into halftime down 23-7. And allowing Alabama to get 16 points, just like that, in 8 minutes. Along with that harsh momentum swing. That lost them the game right there. Like, granted, they tried to battle back. They did. This long touchdown run by Bishop that I missed out on, he made some excellent cuts, and honestly, he was a star for Tennessee in this game. I will give him that. They did also, to start out the second half, force Alabama into a fumble after they were making some good progress, but they nabbed Ty Simpson in the backfield and forced him into pressure. And then they would subsequently punt. Then it got even worse. Because why just settle for one lone 99-yard play? How about being down by 10 points with a chance to potentially come back later on in the third quarter and giving up a 99-yard drive to allow Alabama to go up by 17 points near the end of the third quarter, with Rico Scott punching it in after Jeremy Bernard got multiple runs of greater than 15 yards on this drive, and they had multiple 15-plus yard gains in general. And Scott, he just, man, like, he ran such a good dummy route, and Tennessee was just nowhere near him at that point. Like, it is just crazy. So, honestly, again, even with Tennessee scoring and that subsequently being followed up by another Alabama touchdown in which Hill would get a 4-yard touchdown run, Alabama would finish the game winning 37-20. And again, you can look at all that stuff and try and say that Tennessee tried, but again, that sequence was a killer. And that Aguilar pick six thrown by him on literally the final play of the first half effectively buried them in their graves. That 99-yard drive from Alabama in the third quarter was just them pissing on it. Add even more insult to injury. You have to give Alabama tremendous credit. But my goodness. For a split second, Tennessee had it. And again, in just a matter of moments, all it takes is one play to completely change the momentum in a game. They dealt with multiple. And before you knew it, even though they did get the game back within 10, by that point, man, the Crimson Tide created enough distance to where all of Tennessee's efforts would fall incredibly short. For the numbers, Ty Simpson had 65.5% completion for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns with no picks and the fumble. Alabama had 120 combined rushing yards, while Jeremy Bernard was the leading rusher with 49 yards on 5 carries. And Hill also had a touchdown and 34 rushing yards on 7 carries. Jan Miller, even if I want to say, it could have been Miller time, he had just 1.2 yards per carry. He did punch it in for a touchdown, but man. Ryan Williams might have had one of his better games of the season from a production standpoint with 5 receptions for 87 yards. And Jeremy Bernard had 5 receptions for 60 yards. As for Tennessee, man, again, brutal game from Aguilar. I mean, hey, he extends his streak of over 200 passing yards in the game to 31, but at what cost? 63.6% completion rather, and a touchdown. But that brutal, demoralizing interception. Bishop had 14 rushes for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. And for receivers, Staley had 10 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown, while Brazel II had 7 receptions for 66 yards. Somebody, because I saw something real quick where I guess Kalen DeBoer was breaking up something after the game, and then somebody in like a comment section of that essentially just going after Damani Jackson. Then you have responses to that saying that, hey, he had the right to go on and talk stuff because he held Brazel in check. I'm not going to lie. Like, 7 receptions and 66 yards in a college football game like that, those are numbers that some receivers would wish they could put up in a game. And again, that is just how good Brazel II is. To say that they held that nigga to a pretty good standard game for your typical wide receiver in college football. I mean, hey, from that perspective, I guess, because he did not get superhuman just mossing niggas down the field like he was in that damn Georgia game. That could not happen. This would have been a very different ball game if that shit would have occurred. Because, no. At that point, man, that's going to make Aguilar even more comfortable to test your defense. And I don't know if they would have held up there. I can't say that would happen. And moving on to number 23, Utah at BYU. The battle in the Mormon State. And honestly, there is a lot more on the line than this than I previously thought. Identities of these two teams are pretty fucking similar, to say the least. pretty similar. Both of them are definitely run-centric offenses. Now, I'm not going to lie, like, at least for BYU, I've seen a decent amount of both teams. BYU, between Parker Kingston and Chase Roberts, have some pretty fucking good wide receivers on their team. But the flow of both of these offenses runs through, ironically enough, how well they can impose their will on the ground. Bachmeier and Dampier are both running quarterbacks in every sense of the word. And even though Bachmeier has had a few games every now and then where he goes ballistic in the passing game. Same with Dampier. Yeah, they are definitely predicated on tucking the ball, breaking down, I guess, through scrambles and things like that, and extending plays that way. That's what they both do to survive and thrive in their offenses. And there you have a deep enough core of running backs to keep defenses honest as well. Both of them. It all makes sense when you really think about it because they mentioned that Sataki, I was watching Big Noon kickoff, and they mentioned that Sataki, the BYU head coach, actually coached under Kyle Whittingham for a few years at Utah with him in like the mid-2010s. And I'm like, damn, that adds a little more intrigue. So you know that Sataki is, one, going to want to do everything in his power to stay undefeated and win this game, but also get a little jab back at his former mentor. And from that perspective, I could see that. Whittingham himself also had a lot on the line, and I mean a lot on the line coming into this one. I did not know that his bloodline ran that deep into not only the Utah school, but this rivalry itself. I mean, no wonder they've expressed a lot of loyalty to him. But even then, like, it'd be easy to let him go if he was not the greatest coach in the world. That man has been nothing but a great figure of that football program for such a long time. And again, I don't see him ever relinquishing that position unless he decides that, hey, he's getting a little too old and wants to move on and do other things with his life down the line. But, when it comes to this rivalry between Utah and BYU, he's obviously going to have a lot of involvement in some of the more recent ones. But, just try this shit on for size. Essentially, since the 1950s, in 47 of the last few matchups that BYU and Utah have had since that period of time, there has been at least one member of Whittingham, family members, okay? At least one member of that family tree to have appeared in this game as a coach or a player. Generational fucking beef between Whittingham family members and this damn BYU school. Like, that is absolutely crazy shit to look at. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. That is wild as hell, dude. Like, wow. You cannot make that shit up. You can't. I mean, my goodness, bro. Damn. And, he definitely wanted to make his presence felt early. Like, not only did one of the backers manage to pressure Bachmeier so well, let it force him into an incompletion on a dump-off play, but John Henry Daly has also been a consistent force for this Utah defensive line, and he managed to just make life a living hell for Bachmeier instantly to start off the game, so that's tough. But again, similarly, throughout, honestly, most of this game, especially when you look at, most of the game, both defenses were forcing each other into turnovers on down and 3-and-out punts. There wasn't a lot of in between. There were definitely some crazier moments, but, you know, the larger idea was to ensure that Bachmeier nor Dampier would get open rushing space to start killing these defenses and entering the second level. Because the second that happened, it would turn the game completely on its side. And they both knew that. Now, again, it wasn't perfect. Dampier himself had a few long scrambles. Bachmeier himself had a few long scrambles to start out the game, but nothing too dangerous to pose a threat to the defense just yet. BYU would break through with Bachmeier again, having one of the rare opportunities to run without resistance. And it killed him. Because from there, LJ Martin got a couple of big runs to go with the workhorse that he is. And then Chase Roberts would just continue to, again, be a really good wide receiver for them. Not only did he get a 26-yard haul in, but he also caught a 17-yard touchdown pass to give BYU the lead. And again, their defense continued to keep it going for a little while as they forced Utah into 4th and 7. Which again, this is kind of weird because both teams would find themselves in situations where they just pass up opportunities to kick the field goal. And again, I get it. Angles can be deceiving. And, you know, it might, like, kind of fuck up the kicker a little bit. But damn, like, that feels like good enough distance. That shows that you really don't trust your kicker. And Dampier would subsequently throw an incomplete pass. BYU would also go 3 and out before Utah would respond with their only touchdown of the first half as well. They had Bray get a few solid runs to start off the drive. And from there, things then hit the fan once Simmons, for one, got a 24-yard catch. And then Dampier again up the middle and over to the left. Ran almost untouched up until he reached the red zone and got a 26-yard gain out of that. Then Dampier, in due time, would manage to get a great pass again to Davis for an 11-yard touchdown. Like, it is absolutely craziness, man. You just gotta respect that. BYU did have a chance to get themselves on the board and take some momentum back. And while they would initially fail to do so, they got bailed out a little bit because of a muffed punt. That extended possession for them, essentially. And they just bled more clock from there. Left Utah with only 12 seconds and managed to get a 3-point advantage heading into halftime. Very stagnant third quarter. Again, similar idea here, as both teams would force each other into 3 and outs before Utah would definitely get a good drive going. Now, the thing about this shit is, like, I don't know. Because like, I'm watching this quad of TVs, and in other games, you have just very wild and unexplainable shit going on at these specific points. Tell me why, on this damn third down conversion, Dampier gets a great pass over to the tight end. He's open and he starts bowling down the field, and the nigga... Okay, what the fuck? Like, the nigga gets the ball punched out of his arms, alright? And yet somehow, some way, it miraculously falls and rotates over to the hands of a different wide receiver from Utah. And he starts sprinting down the fucking field. Dead ass nearly scores a touchdown. Luckily, BYU catches up with him. What the fuck is going on? Like, that shit is just wild. And honestly, if you're going to get that kind of luck going, you'd think that they would finish this off with a touchdown or some kind of score. It just get on the board at that point. That's a testament to the BYU defense. as they would stop Dampier just short. To have some madness like that go down and still hold up and not break as a defense, like, yo, that takes some kind of fucking willpower. Like, legitimately. Having a play like that go down would just leave you rattled as hell. And yet, no. It definitely made for a great laugh. But, hey, they locked back in and prevented them from doing much of anything. Utah nearly got one back themselves as they nearly forced Bachmeier into a big mistake with a two-way player in Benin posing as a safety here. But they got a brutal penalty that offset that. Still, though, they would stop them in their tracks and force the punt anyways. Utah would definitely put together a solid response. I mean, they got some decent games in between everything, but things really hit the fan once Bird Ficklin, the backup Bird Ficklin that they put in against Arizona State last week for a little bit of time before I pieced out of that game because it was already done. He picked up a huge chunk that I missed, and then Bray would manage to get an end around, and he just, nobody was even anywhere in position to tackle him, and he had all the leverage in the world, burst completely outside and over to the left for a 49-yard touchdown run to give Utah a 4-point lead. In no time, BYU responded instantly. And it was through the action of, again, consistent receiver play. Like, I don't know if Ryan, specifically this number 20 dude, is a fullback. I'm not sure, but it was a laser of a throw, and Ryan took full advantage of it to get a 26-yard gain here. But in between all that, it was Parker Kingston, again, serving as a perfect complement. Say what you want about him potentially being a slot receiver, but hey, BYU served up the Utes a taste of their own medicine by legitimately running an end around for Parker Kingston in the same fucking direction and getting a 12-yard touchdown run. Brutal outcome for the Utes here. Not only would they allow that to happen, but Wall, one of the safeties for BYU, actually managed to lurk the absolute hell out of Devin Dampier on what was kind of I don't know. It might not have been an underthrown pass. It's probably just a testament to how well Wall jumped it. But nevertheless, that ended up being a crucial turnover. And right after that, BYU burned clock, drove 64 yards down the field. And again, LJ Martin got them in position. But this damn play from Bachmeier was the complete and total icing on the cake to set this game in stone, damn near. Man, he got a little jump cut hurdle, and he started doing as best as he could to protect the ball as other Utah defenders were trying to converge on him and everything. But, bruh, he stuck with it the whole damn time. Like, he might have been dead to rights as they were trying to completely stymie him from getting a much larger gain than he already did at that point. But as he got closer and closer to the 5-yard line, this man got the strongest push from every single lineman on that BYU team imaginable, and his individual effort with their collective collaboration as a team got him into the end zone on a tough-ass 22-yard touchdown run. Granted, they didn't give him the space. They played within their game plan here. But you cannot account for that kind of fucking display of strength. That shit was wild. And at that point, taking a 10-point lead with 4 minutes left, Utah was probably done here. Made matters worse that they turned the ball over on downs. And BYU would do the same, which did lead to a touchdown pass from Dampier to Simmons out of Vandy. But, again, onside kicks are rare. And BYU would get it as they would secure a 24-21 win against Utah at home in Provo for the nightcap on Fox. Craziness. Bachmeier in this game had a combined 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. LJ Martin on the ground, again, set the damn tone for a team that overall had 204 rushing yards. He had 26 carries per 122. Parker Kingston had 4 receptions for 50 yards, and Chase Roberts had 2 receptions for 43 yards. As for Utah, it's just tough. Because, honestly, if not for that pick, who knows? This game was as even as it could have been outside of that. 55.6% completion for Dampier for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns with that pick. But on the ground, overall, vaulted by Daniel Braze, 10 rushes for 121 yards in the aforementioned touchdown. Jeez. Damn. And that was apparently, as I just clicked on his name, his first 100-yard performance. It paid off. Damn near. The team as a whole was relatively even with what it was. Again, I don't know. When it comes to the rushing attack, they were damn near even with BYU. In fact, outrushing them by 22 yards, getting 226 on the ground. They also averaged 6.1 yards per carry compared to BYU's 5. But they still allowed BYU to be as lethal as they possibly could on that front. And again, they did not do themselves any favors by forking them over a free turnover to work with that they would subsequently score on. That was the defining element of this game. They couldn't stop BYU. BYU couldn't stop them. And at that point, it is all about ball control and ball security. Utah failed in at least one of those respects. And there you go. Davis would have 7 receptions for 66 yards and a touchdown. Bentley had 4 receptions for 65. Buchanan had 2 receptions for 43. And Simmons had 2 receptions for 26 yards and a touchdown catch. Credit to Satuala as well for BYU. The man was flying all over the place over the course of the night. And the man had 11 tackles and 8 solo tackles in this game. Now, that'll do it for all the games that I watched. And for a few more developments. So to start out things with a little bit of weird news from last week, Texas Tech, their tradition will typically see them whenever they're in Lubbock and their fan base is filled to the brim. Man, you'll just randomly see different stuff thrown on the field. And it's okay, what the hell are these guys throwing on the fucking field? They always do this. They have this thing where they just toss loads of fucking tortillas onto the playing surface. And it's you're taking on these opponents in this game. They do it right as the kickoff ends. And again, at that point, it's damn, you still have to go out there and play with tortillas all over the place. I don't know if people would really have to worry about tripping over a tortilla and falling, but it's just damn, you're not necessarily trashing the playing surface, but it's damn. I mean, people have to get to their spots, right? And you'd much rather have it cleared off completely than just have it littered with different stuff. I don't know if this is necessarily what's responsible for this imposition here, but they would be fined $100,000 for the incessant throwing of these soft tortillas. And it's I mean, damn. You know what I'm saying? I would just say, you have to be careful with it. Because, again, you do have players going out on the playing surface, having to deal with that shit. And it's like, oh, that could definitely be a little tedious for some. But at the same time, let the fans have fun. Like, you can't, that is tradition. That is what they do as a fan base. You can't go ahead and penalize them for that per se. But they probably should time it up a little better. Because again, you, like, naturally are going to have to clear all that stuff off once players are actively moving around and trying to do what they can to participate in the game. So that's what I'd say for that. Yesterday, just a mere week after the content of the previous video relating to college football happened, Florida would do it. Because, like I mentioned in that video, there was an allusion to the idea that Billy Napier would not survive another game or another loss with this Florida team. And little did we know, those allusions, those reports ended up being correct. Florida would officially fire Billy Napier yesterday. And it makes sense. Like, yes, he's had cases over the years where he has gotten a few strong wins against contender-worthy teams and ranked opponents. That's much better than James Franklin can say for himself. But again, in terms of winning as a coach, especially with one school, Franklin is leaps and bounds ahead of Napier. Like, Napier finishes right around 500 in his tenure with the Gators over the last few years. And his only winning season was an 8-5 record. Yeah, that's not enough to really instill hope in a fan base. So that decision, although it took quite a long time to make it, it eventually was easy for them, I suppose. Florida themselves, they're going to have to figure out what their next move is. And again, with the mention in the CBS Sports article that I did read about it, with them making an allusion to James Franklin potentially being a look or a school, or Florida being a school that James Franklin should strongly consider going to, it's like, okay. I mean, it's on the table now if that is the direction in which you would want to go. But again, similar thing for Penn State. Like, Florida's going to have to be wise with what they do here. Now, granted, off prestige alone, they've still got a quality about them that does attract great recruits. But again, a coach can influence that heavily. And so again, when are you trying to make this decision? Are you going to make this prior to the January window? It depends, honestly, on how well their season goes. Because even with Napier getting fired, they did win the game against Mississippi State. So, yeah. Like, if they get a decent finish to the season, that could change their mentality a little bit. I'm not sure. I guess we'll see. And yeah, as for Billy Napier, man, I don't know. I think that given his lackluster track record with Florida, he'd probably be a lot more likely to take a longer step back than I think James Franklin personally would be. Because you have so many schools looking for James Franklin's services, honestly. They would love to have him. And while it might take him a little bit to make a decision, like, I think these schools would be comfortable in saying that James Franklin would be an upgrade over their previous guy. Again, unless you are a top-tier contender in the nation. Almost nobody is going to say that about Billy Napier. I can tell you that right now. Nobody. What the hell did he show at Florida to suggest that? Again, outside of the occasional win against a ranked opponent. I mean, shit, he did it against Texas earlier in the season. Like, legitimately. Like, come on, man. That's just how it goes, I suppose. But it was not consistent enough. And it's like, you're not good enough to contend. You're not bad enough to be... I mean, it's not like a draft system, but at the very least, you don't have an ability to properly begin a rebuild in that situation. So now, you're just eternally stuck in the middle, legitimately as mediocre as possible. And that kind of stagnation is what you don't want in this current college football landscape. That's nothing that any person would be able to get behind. Like, at least if Billy Napier and his squad was bad enough, they'd have somewhere to start from and build up that way. We can't even have that argument for him. So it's just like, no. Jay Norvell, the Colorado State head coach, would also be fired. He also only had like one season of bowl eligibility. I think that was just last season. But Colorado State has consistently just been an underwhelming program since he's been there. They are just not relevant. And to think that one of the last times you heard about them from a national standpoint was literally when Braden Fowler Nicolosi went after Shedeur Sanders in that game more than 2 years ago. Like, how is it that, again, yeah, it's a matter of Colorado State not necessarily being seen as one of the best teams in the nation, but how is it that that is what sticks out to me about your program more than 2 years later compared to anything else that you've done since then? Outside of course, having Torrey Horton get drafted to the Seahawks. He has legitimately been such a good player. And again, Colorado State, from that standpoint, is definitely missing him right now, by the way. But that's all you have to show for it. Your tenure there, that's not enough. That is not enough. I don't know what direction Colorado State would necessarily be headed in, but at this point, since again they themselves are not really viewed as a contender, they would be looking for a head coach who can at least like get them in bowl eligibility. And hey, I mean, if you're looking for mediocrity, if you're looking for bowl eligibility, I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, man, I'm gonna say the same thing. Like, hey, the vacancy at Florida opened up with Billy Napier going, and that might give former Penn State coach James Franklin a chance to get over there. In the same way, with Jay Norvell being fired here, and Colorado State trying to at least become a middle-of-the-pack program, it don't get more middle-of-the-pack than Billy Napier. So maybe that could be a potential destination for him. Unless, of course, they want to be taken seriously. Then they'll probably go with legitimately any other option out there. But if they are really trying to settle for mediocrity, Billy Napier's your guy, man. That's all I can say. And, hey, Florida fans, they'll tell you. They'll tell you, man. There's nothing like that 6-6 season, bro. Oh, my goodness. Dealing with another Florida school, there are now reports circulating around a potential buyout and potential firing of Mike Norvell Jr. Because again, while not covering all the action, that still doesn't excuse the fact that the Florida State team fucked around and lost to Stanford, the Cardinal, in 2025. They lost to them late Saturday night in what it would have been an elite late night game between the Pac-12 and the ACC. Yet now both of these teams are at the ACC. What the hell? Man, hey, look. It was looking bad for Florida State anyways. And then I did see something else with a Stanford defender getting an absolute, like, yo, he just ran full speed ahead, led with the crown of his helmet into Thomas Castellanos' like head, and he was taken out of the game. That came at the end. Florida State was still down at that point. I don't know if him still being healthy would have led to them winning or not. I can't speculate on that. But that was fucked up. That was fucked up. He should definitely be suspended for that. He will be suspended for that. Should probably get fined for that too, I'm not going to lie. But still, there's no excuse for you to lose to a program like that. You literally lost to Ben Gulbranson. Think about that shit. For a school that has still had quarterback troubles over the past few years, his ass ain't even all that good. And he managed to beat this defense. How is that even possible? The fact is you start off 3-0 with a scorching hot offense. And then in ACC play, going all the way back to last year, continue to suck hard in the ACC. Like, something's got to give at some point. That's not something that you can continue to settle for. And I think Florida State is finally starting to understand that. Now, I would have to consistently check in with that again. I don't know if that means that Mike Norvell is necessarily going to get fired right now. But the fact that all this buzz after the game is starting to heat up, it is not looking good. And it could only be a matter of time before athletic directors in the brass at Florida State make that call to get him out of there. Unless he turns this around completely. Because at this point, your chances of contending are now done. And it was looking like you very well were turning it around after that 3-0 start, including that Alabama win. Then just like that. Just like that. You can't find yourself winning at all. You can't. You just can't. Like, how is, again, yeah, East Texas A&M and Kent State are easy outs. Don't get me wrong, we all understood that, but damn. Like, at the very least, you give yourself a cushion, and then you proceed to lose to Virginia and Chandler Morris, who are now 6-1 on some fluky ass shit. You lose to fucking Miami in a blowout. You lose to Pitt with their quarterback situation also being incredibly weird. I think Holstein was still there, and they had a backup come in there and beat the brakes off your defense. And then you lose to a team considered to be one of the worst, if not the worst team in the ACC. Once again, you've hit rock bottom in your own conference, and you're supposed to be a team who runs it. That ain't happening. And a change is going to come if, again, they don't turn this shit around. It is looking bleak, though. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.